Have you ever wanted to build gradients into your Minecraft builds? Well, today on Deuces, we're going to go over some gradients you can put into your builds and how you can better gradient. Okay, so imagine this. You're in your Minecraft world, right? And you go to sleep. Here you wake up and you go to look outside your window. Well, it's a pretty nice view out there, so you decide to go to your front porch and you go outside, open the doors, and you stop. The second you turn, you see these massive pillars of just colors. So you decide to turn around and go downstairs and go back out your front door. And out of curiosity, you just kind of stand there. And then eventually you start walking. And this is going to be the gradients we go over today. To start off with, we're going to look at a pretty basic gray to black gradient. And this will consist of deep slate bricks, deep slate tiles, and then black stone bricks. This is a darker, more basic gradient. This essentially will this is good for, I guess, darker castle builds and more just dark based themes. And these can be used pretty easily, and it's not super necessary for these usually, but for bigger builds it does make a huge difference with a gradient compared to just having one flat wall. And sometimes that can be avoided by using detail, but usually adding these slight gradients like this, just kind of dark focus gradient can help a lot with your builds. This next gradient is going to be a lot more balanced. This is going to be your full white to dark gray, so this will be calcite, diorite, andesite, stone, tuff, and smooth basalt, which these can be used if you're trying to give some kind of like light texture, or just sort of, just transform your build or give it more aging. And using the diorite here on the second level, since it has those little bits of gray, it molds into the andesite a lot better than if you just went from calcite to andesite or even calcite to stone. And everything here just kind of works really well together, just blending into the next layer. And that's really what you want when you're looking for a gradient, is just blocks that look like they can work together and are in a similar color palette to a point where they're not sticking out and just looking awkward compared to one another. Next, we're going to move into some more color-based gradients, starting with a blue gradient, which consists of stripped warped. I guess it's considered stripped warped hyphae, but everyone calls it stripped warped wood. So just stripped warped, cyan concrete powder, cyan wool, cyan concrete, and then it moves into the warped warp block, warped planks, and dark prismarine. And this is similar to the I guess the white to gray, where it just starts lighter at the bottom, and as you move up it gets darker, and similar, just gives a more aging or lighting feel. And these can probably be moved around a lot. There's a lot of colors in Minecraft. I did not include every color in here, but you can definitely work around and create new gradients or just styles that you would like to do as you play with these. Our second colored gradient is going to be a red base. We're going to start with the mangrove logs stripped, then move into mangrove planks, and then from there go to red terracotta to red concrete powder, then move into red wool, which turns into red concrete, and eventually turns into the nether warp blocks. Once again, this is a maybe not just a light to dark, but you can see how they all kind of blend into one another, and you can probably shift it as you want. Certain blocks won't work together like next to one another, but eventually I think you'll get it all to work together if you do it right and you approach it correctly. You just need to watch out for how you order them, and if they're ordered wrong, it can make your builds look really sloppy compared to a correctly ordered gradient, which will make your builds look a lot cleaner and give more like feel to them. Next, we're going to move into our orange color, which is going to be our second tallest gradient for today in pillar wise. You're going to start more at the bottom with a brown color and eventually move up into a brighter orange. So you're going to start with the brown mushroom block and then immediately shift into the stripped acacia log, which will go into the acacia planks, turning into smooth red sandstone, and eventually turning into red sand, orange concrete, orange wool, and then orange concrete powder. Normally I would put the concretes next to one another, but since the orange concrete and concrete powder are so different in like tint, or I guess shade, it doesn't work to put them next to one another, and you're better off putting the powder with the wool as they have a much closer color while still being slightly different. Now we're going to go from our second tallest pillar to our second shortest pillar. And this is because the yellow one, it doesn't really have a ton of blocks that it can phase into. Now if you wanted to, you could probably start with some green blocks on the bottom like bamboo and just fade that into the yellow. So you could probably have like a green-yellow gradient if you want that. But on the just yellow side, you're going to go from yellow terracotta to yellow concrete to yellow wool, and then into the gold blocks to yellow concrete powder. The gold blocks, I'm not really sure if where I placed them would be correct. I found a really hard time trying to figure out where it went. Just because the way that it's textured. I think if it didn't have like the weird outline on it, it'd be a lot better. But I think because it has that blocky outline, it just kind of makes it harder to place it in a position where it doesn't look awkward. So maybe this will change depending on your texture pack and if you have that or not on your block. But yeah, I mean, it kind of depends, and realistically you're not going to use gold. This is more of a if you're doing it for creative and you want to, but realistically you're not going to use gold in your builds because that's extremely expensive. But I mean, if you're rich and you want to try it, feel free. Now we're going to move into what I consider to be the easiest to get in survival, and that's because this is all wood based, so super easy. You don't even need to, get a ton of materials for it. It's going to start with stripped birch wood, move into stripped oak wood, and then stripped spruce wood, and then you're just going to go to your unstripped. You're going to go to oak wood, jungle wood, and spruce wood. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's another brown base like the next one over here. So you're gonna see this pretty commonly. And this might be harder than if you tried some other gradients, but it is still pretty simple to get compared to some of the colored ones that need more grinding to get into and a lot more materials in different places, whereas this can all be harvested within like one small area. So this may be one that you try and stick with, but that's up to you. Finally, we're going to move into the last absolutely massive pillar, and this is just entirely brown. So this may or may not be useful for like terraforming, or just if you want a black or a brown build. To start with, you're going to start with your light brown, so you're going to start with end stone, then you're going to move into birch planks, and then oak planks, and then you're going to go back to the brown mushroom block that we used earlier, then packed mud, granite, dripstone, then polished granite, normal terracotta, and then you're going to use dirt, which is optional, and then finally you're going to use the brown concrete powder. You can probably like keep this going too, like start using brown concrete and even darker blocks, but like that's up to you. This is already a ton of blocks that you'd have to get and everything, so you can play with it, but this is I would think a pretty decent base to start with, and it's, like I said, it's absolutely massive. It's 3 more blocks than the orange one, which is the second largest, and that was only 1 block more than the blue and red. But that just shows you like how much 1 extra block can kind of make it look like it transforms even more, and it just allows your gradients to look more realistic over time, and just allows you to better build these gradients. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Obviously this is not the video I was hoping to have out this week. I was dealing with a bit of sickness and just was overall busy, so we're hoping to release the bigger video next weekend, but if that does not happen, we will have another quicker video and then have it the next weekend. So within the next 2 weeks we should have the big video, but yeah, so when that comes out, you're going to want to get notified, so remember to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see y'all next week.